really know what's going on over there other than everybody's dumb.
The instant you step out of line, you say something that they don't like and they don't like you personally, they're going to use all those pre-existing laws and they're going to use it on you.
Woman exposed her male genitalia to women and underage girls. That's what happened.
It's pure propaganda and it's super cringe, by the way. It's super cringe.
I'll pay Mr. Trump. Don't worry, I won't mess up your hair.
Step on it, we're late. Thanks, Mario.
Thanks, Mario. How are you, Eric Butler? UnAuthorizedOpinions.com, UOPod.com, YouTube, Twitter, the best podcast on Getter of all time. Better than War Room. I said it. Better than all those Hong Kong podcasts. I said it. And of course, Spotify, Google, and Apple. How are you, Eric?
And Twitch. You always forget Twitch. I will never forget
Damn.
the Twitch viewer.
Damn.
We got more viewers on Twitch than the WNBA.
That's true.
Yeah, so we're doing good. I was at there was like a dog show in my neighborhood. So like some uplifting news you can watch on my Instagram stories. Like, it's not news. It's definitely not news. What am I talking about? It's just like a fun thing with a bunch of dogs and old people and no politics.
Is that the dog shows where they do the competitions, this going in and out and stuff, and then the relays?
Yeah, there were like show dogs there, so they kind of what looks like they put their hand up their butt, kind of, and then they have like the agility course. I don't think. I mean, it was free.
In that.
There was wait, what?
A lot of poodles in that show dog stuff.
It's funny you bring that up because that's like the one breed I don't even remember seeing. Like there was like these tiny little. I don't know anything about dogs, bro, but these little rat dogs. All the way up to these giant dogs that look like horses, everything in between. But now that you bring it up, I don't remember seeing any poodles, but I don't think it's like a big thing. It was free. I just strolled right in. Like I was just walking around the neighborhood and there's no tickets. There's no security. There's no nothing, but
dog terrorists are champing at the bid.
Yeah,
I tried to go filming today, which I have tried to go for the last 3 weekends. Get my Danny Mullen on. Again, it starts snowing immediately. Within the hour, I'm supposed to leave. It starts snowing aggressively. Couldn't do that. Tried to turn off Google two-step verification. Can't do that if I want to monetize the podcast. So just not a good start. They got their talents in.
Turn it off or turn it on?
Turn it off. Why would I want it on? Why would I want them to know that where I am at all times? They always want to be able to send you a message to your phone, have you confirm that you're on your phone, so they can have their talons into you.
I thought you needed that to monetize. I thought
you do. Okay. So I turned it off, and then when I was starting this podcast, it's like, oh, you need that. Unfortunately.
All right. Yeah. They want to track every single thing before they even give you a shot to monetize. And then if you put one wrong word in the title, they will demonetize it before it even starts.
Well, this episode is demonetized already. Just
for what? We didn't
warning. That's right. So if you're watching,
I'm also noticing
hit us up with a super chat.
Reparations. I'm also noticing.
Reoperations.
Just now noticing that. Oh well.
That's okay. We can change that on the fly and then in subsequent postings.
Nobody's perfect. But so after we fix our grammar and our spelling, where are we starting? What do we? Because there's a lot.
Starting with GameStop. There is a lot. We're starting with GameStop. The Tyree, spelled Tire Nichols. I'm sure everybody saw it. We can't show it on here because it's a violent thing, and we'll probably get a channel strike. But
I just for the record, can I say really quickly?
Yeah, tell me how you feel.
Well, I didn't actually watch it because I don't need to watch it. It doesn't matter anymore. Nothing. And I said this a long time ago. I said this back in the summer of love that it literally doesn't matter. All of these cops are facing charges. They've all been fired. Doesn't matter. City still burn. Right.
That's true.
So does it matter what's on the footage? No. We could talk about the timing. I don't want to get too triggered. Let's start with this video.
Well, yeah,
from-
that's what Jason Whitlock says. Is this is a distraction from Ukraine? But basically, what happened was they pull him over. I don't remember why, speeding or something. They pull him out of the car. He refuses to put his hands behind his back. They hit him a little bit. He runs away, which obviously he's committing crimes by doing this, by resisting arrest and then running away. They catch him. Another group of cops catches him. They handcuff him. He's still resisting. They handcuff him. But at that point, they get it from an aerial view of a traffic light or something, or a spotlight of some kind, like a street lamp. And then that's when they cuff him. They stand him up. They've already pepper sprayed him. They start beating him. They start batoning him, kicking him, punching him, and he died. So it was pretty open and shut case. I don't know why they're rioting. They get fired. It's the leftist justice system that lets them out on bail right away, even though they're charged with murder, which is strange enough. And then you have these things in New York where Antifa calls for violence against police stations. And then this one was in Memphis. I don't know how looting and GameStop has anything to do with what happened to this guy. It says
Well,
Andy knows multiple stores were looted on Jan 27 after the release of the Tyre Nichols police video. In addition to a sporting goods store, GameStop was also broken into and looted. And Joe on the scene has this, and we will watch it now.
What other one? On Park Avenue. It's like they been in there one too. Oh, really? God damn. Ooh, empty. Shit. Well, she told me it took like.
That's not empty. I've seen worse.
All GameStops are designed the same, eh?
Dude, I haven't been in a GameStop since
1963.
Yeah, since the first Xbox, or maybe Xbox One or something. I don't know.
Looks like Xbox took the worst of it. I think this is an obvious story here, is people just getting in on looting, which is kind of always what happens, isn't it?
Yeah. So, and I think now it does say a sporting goods store was also looted, because I was going to say perhaps the Nike stores and the Foot Lockers are a little bit more secure now, because they know, for whatever reason, they're first up on the chopping block when something like this happens. So the next on the list is a GameStop, so you can get a PS5 or something, which probably isn't even in there. I don't even know. Like, the PS5 is still probably pretty hard to get, so I don't know what they're after. But I would assume that the flight clubs. I don't know if you know a flight club, but the sneaker stores,
No.
for whatever reason. Look, I'll admit, I'm black. I love sneakers. I love Jordans and Yeezys, so I get it, right? Like, if I'm there's old photos of some guy walking somehow looting Travis Scott Air Jordans back in the summer of love. Like, that's like $2,000 on a pair of shoes alone. So we're gonna do it all over again, even though they basically got what they were asking for last time, right? So they want the cops fired, they want the cops charged. That's exactly what happened, as I understand it, that they're facing trial. So I don't know. I mean, there's really no other excuse except for we just wanted free stuff, and that's what we've seen. But another thing about this is that not only are they fired and charged, but on the opposite side, right? They don't want people to take, so they hate the cops, but they also hate the people who take justice into their own hands, like, say, a guy who sprays down a bum who's been making a mess in front of his store, or say a guy like Kyle Rittenhouse. They don't want that either. They just want you to obey no matter what they say. You know what I mean? So, like, oh, we hate the cops so much, but as soon as somebody does it themselves, they're mad at them too. So you just can't win. The game is rigged, and we go get sneakers and video games and purses and all that stuff.
Well, I think once it gets to the group level, like what they did where they blocked the highway out there in Tennessee, it's just the whole tear the system down thing. And and it sounds silly to keep saying it over the years, but it is just like a communist method of tearing everything down to rebuild it. You see the rioters in Atlanta, get rid of the police. They can't have any police presence, is what they're saying, because that causes anarchy, and that they want to do. That's what the anarchists want. They think they can operate on their own governance, but the people paying them, which we saw in like back in 2016 Project Veritas days with the Scott Fovel is a name I remember, and there was another guy, the people that actually pay Antifa, they're not going to allow this anarchist society to stem once they get rid of police and once they get rid of bail. It's just going to be, what the Davos groups wants, which is an ultra rich group of people they're the only ones who are allowed to fly. They're the only ones who can properly heat their homes. They're the only ones who can eat meat. So that's going to be who's in charge. That's not what's going to happen after everything gets torn down and maybe some black identitarian groups, think they're going to get into power. We talked about I think it was last week, who they had this group calling for reparations. It's part of this global group of reparations that they want. And they talk about that. They're not going to be the ones who are allowed to be in charge. The elitist billionaire groups who control the credit card companies and the computer companies and thus the facial tracking and everything and monetary tracking systems and the monetary systems themselves. They're going to be the ones who are in charge. And it's going to be this pseudo communist Chinese like state, but instead of just whipping people on the corner like China does, beating people down the street, it's going to be like, sit in your home, work from home, we'll give you your TikTok and your YouTube, but you can't go outside and do anything else. Just like they're trying in England, where they're blocking off certain roads at certain times, saying that we're fighting climate change, therefore you cannot travel freely with a car in the streets that you pay for. That's the type of future that's going to happen. So
And that is
these people
happening. They're shutting down roads. They're shutting down roads and doing toll roads in New York. And Scott Wiener, one of my favorite senators, one of my favorite politicians, the creepiest man in all of American politics, Scott Wiener. Go ahead and duck. I've been screaming about this guy for years now, but he wants to tear down a highway in San Francisco just because they don't want car travel. They got toll roads in San Francisco. You can't drive down certain parts of Market Street. And I think I mentioned this. When I went back home, not for Christmas, but for Thanksgiving, and I was driving around San Francisco, I noticed a huge uptick, as they like to say, in roads that were closed to traffic. So these are neighborhoods that I used to live in and would drive to and from and get taxis and get Ubers and all that stuff. And now it's just closed to cars unless you have an ID that says you live there. So they really are working on that stuff. And I know it sounds like a stretch, like it's like these things are totally not related, but they are. And just for you to bring that up, I can see it. I can see it already happening in New York and California. Now, it's not happening here yet in Arizona, but who knows? It's not far away. It's really what they're working on.
It is the next step, and I have to wonder that if at this point the whole Davos group and the Pfizer CEO walking down the street to be accosted by good old, I forget Avi's full name, but Avi Yemeni, it seems almost like they're just like, okay, we're going to give you this, but either they're dumb enough to put everything out in the open and not care anymore, or they've already planned for something else, and them just showing Klaus Schwab being there and putting the dumbest politicians possible, being Al Gore and who's long face guy, former
John
vice
Kerry.
president there, John Kerry, putting the dumbest politicians at the
long
forefront.
face guy. I knew exactly.
That seems to be like it's probably a bait, and they're planning things elsewhere at this point, because we went from the Bilderberg group that got disrupted. Now every year Avi's on the ground watching things at the Davos group. Where's the next thing going to be? Where's the next portion of this super leftist weird totalitarian group of billionaires meeting? I don't know where that is. I have to imagine they're a few steps ahead on that, hence why they're still able to control things. Now, having said that, the Democratic leadership in the United States and the Western world is getting dumber and dumber and worse and making their societies worse and worse, that they're all starting to step down. And what they do when they step down is they reveal this fault in our systems where all they have to do is put the person they really want in second or third place, and then they get to be the new leader. So in the UK, you had Boris Johnson, who they called the British Trump, but I think he was more established than Trump. He steps down. You get this Indian guy who just immediately starts spouting World Economic Forum talking points. Or New Zealand, you get communist girl. She steps down.
She's like 30 years old. She's out at the club or whatever.
She steps down. They replace her with somebody worse. In Canada now, Trudeau, if he thinks he's going to lose, he will step down. Second in command to him is Chrystia Freeland, grandchild of Nazis, World Economic Forum poster girl. She might leave to be part of to lead not the UN, excuse me, to lead NATO. So who knows that they're going to put in after that? My point is that they have found a way to put in, oh, you don't like the person that's leading you? Well, the person who's in second or third, you didn't elect, and now they're going to be the puppet that we didn't even have to present to you. This person didn't even. If Chrystia Freeland went on a campaign, people would hate her. She's not a likable person. Her voice is annoying, and there's no way she's getting elected. Just like there's no way Kamala Harris is getting elected. So if something
It's like
happens to
Kathy
Joe
Hochul.
Biden,
Kathy
exactly.
She.
Go
I
ahead.
mean, look, Kathy Hochul, whatever her name is, she did win election. She won. I'm not gonna blame it on any sort of fraud. I think it's deeper than that, right? Like people have been manipulated into possibly voting. I think most New York people don't even vote, and they claim they carry around AOC tote bags and they pretend, but they don't actually vote. So somehow Kathy Hochul wins. So I mean, it goes right to your point. Like I hated Andrew Cuomo. I blamed him with ruining my life, but Kathy Hochul is worse. Almost the same thing with De Blasio, right? Like De Blasio was awful, and Eric Adams is arguably just as bad, maybe worse because he pretends he's not as bad. He says, "Oh, I'm gonna do." See, De Blasio will come out right in your face and say, "We're gonna cut $1 billion from the NYPD." Eric Adams is gonna say, "Oh, I'm pro safety, and we're gonna crack down and make sure that the city's safe," but he won't. At least De Blasio is gonna tell you kind of the truth, right? Like he's gonna stuff his face with a cheeseburger and tell you to go get the shot, but he's not going to lie about how much he hates police. Eric Adams is going to tell you he likes police and he wants to keep the city safe, but he doesn't actually want to do that. So it's happening all over the place. Even here in Arizona, I will go ahead and blame this one on some. Well, you can't say the F word, and we're already demonetized. But some unsavory election procedure and if you look at Katie Hobbs, who's now the governor of Arizona, if you look at her Instagram, every single post is flooded with comments of people that know the truth. And I would venture to say that she's actually deleting some of them. Well, not her, like her exactly, but some of her team members are probably deleting these things because there'll only be like 10 or 15 comments, and it'll be like one who's like, "Go, Katie, like we love you." And then the rest are like, "You belong in jail. We don't trust you. This was rigged. You were fraudulent, blah, blah, blah." But you would think there would be at least 40, 50 comments, but it's only like 15 or 16. And I don't know. I can't say for sure, but it seems like even as people are commenting that they don't trust her and they don't believe it was real, they can't keep up. So as they delete stuff, more new comments pop up. I don't know. Again, I can't prove that. I'm just saying like we're being. I mean, it feels like it was like it. Because I live in America, that it's just us, and they're doing this hostile takeover. These weird establishment left wing people, globalists. I don't even know what the term is anymore, but it's happening everywhere, right? Like it's not just happening here; it's happening in Canada, it's happening in the UK, obviously Australia, New Zealand. So they're literally attempting to take over the Western world. I don't know what's happening in China or India. I guess China's already just a commie nation, so I don't know. I'm not as one famous bartender once said, I am not an expert in geopolitics, so I don't really know what's happening. But
Well,
last
I
thing
have
though,
to
really quickly
go ahead.
about the timing, right? Jason Whitlock, he said they were trying to distract from Ukraine, which I totally 100% agree with. But if I wanted to strap on my tinfoil hat even further, I'd say, I mean, the Pelosi thing happened back in October, and they just happened to release it 2 days after this Pfizer thing. The thing in Memphis happened at the beginning of January. So does it take 4 months? Does it take 4 or 5 months to get the video out, or does it take 2 weeks? Or is it just a matter of we need to erase something that happened a couple days ago?
Well, yeah, the Pelosi thing released on the same day as this Memphis thing as
Yeah.
well. So earlier in the day, and then this is going to overshadow all nightly news programming. Of course, it's easy. The good thing is that Fox News exists to counter that, where it's like you've got 6 million people watching Tucker, another extra million watching the Five. Now this might be the same people, but at least you're getting an additional million people of Hannity only people and Five only people to counter the everything combined on CNN, MSNBC, and ABC matches them maybe combined, but then you have to imagine the stuff that's get pushed out on social media is far more left wing, and then that's where they overtake the narrative. To comment on your thing about the social media posts, I would have to imagine that there's people who are voting just down party lines for Democrats who aren't aware at all. I mean, I had a conversation with somebody once who I know is not politically engaged at all, and they said, "Isn't AOC one of the good ones, though?" And it's like you have to be so far down in the spiral of social media to think that the purview that what is presented as AOC's intellect is intelligent. You just have to be so far down the rabbit hole where it's like, well, these people shouldn't have all this land, and this is what's going on. And to be convinced that AOC is smart, like an intelligent person, you have to be so far convinced in this realm that she's, she's just a regular person. Why can't they be more like her as she, does her nails or whatever on Instagram? So these are the people who aren't going to go on Katie Hobbs's Instagram and give positive remarks. The only person you have that for is the leader of the country. I feel like the Trudeaus and the Bidens are the only ones who get positive remarks. And sorry to tell you that those are often people who aren't from the country, just foreseeing them as a great leader based on what they see on social media from other countries. It'd be very easy to see a person who's a foreign leader and you get fed through the things you watch on Snapchat and Instagram and be like, look how great they're doing. Joe Biden has increased the job market by 200% since January 2021. Oh my God, what a great job he must be doing. All these right wingers are crazy. And that's how it's presented. If you recall back in the day when you were younger, just thinking like, well, not even, maybe you didn't have it, but I had this viewpoint pushed upon me where it's like, this is everything we're
It's the
presenting to
default
you.
position.
Yeah.
It's
And
the
everything
default.
that strays from that, we all have differences, but there's this group of crazy conservatives out there, and they're just not, everybody believes they're nuts. And that's how it's presented really from CNN's point of view, is that there isn't really a different point of view. This is the default position that everyone agrees on.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I grew up in the Bay Area. Of course, that's. I mean, these people. I mean, they're so. There's okay. I've said this before, but don't. I honestly don't believe that there's. You could count on one hand how many people are politically and politically engaged and like media savvy who can defend any of the policy positions of the establishment. Only know that they only have been brainwashed to know that those people who don't wear the stupid mask, I know that's an old example, but generally speaking, basically wearing a mask is showing your allegiance, right? So anybody who's not willing to do those things, that's a crazy person. But that same person is not going to be able to defend any of the positions. They just know that this is the line that I have to toe. Otherwise, because the media, again, another thing that I've said before, it works in two ways. Of course, it can brainwash stupid people, right? Years and years of brainwashing will work, but it can also trick regular rational people into believing that they are in the minority when that's just not true. So it's completely manipulated all of reality to where some college kid, some weirdo brainwashed college kid will never tell you, well, I really like that Kamala Harris because this one thing she did in 2004 when she was AG or whatever what she was before. They can't say that. All they know is this is the position that the television told me. Shout out Rob from Huey Media, and they can't explain it. And I'm not suggesting everybody needs to know the history of every single politician, but they, and this is again to bring it full circle. This is why we always see so much censorship, because if good points start to be pushed out to people who were, I like to think and this is probably going to sound bad, but the Cardi B demographic, right? The Lizzo demographic, that's like the last demo that the establishment truly has their claws in, at least here in America. Like the yeah girl, like shout your abortion, like yes queen, like the fingernails. That's the last group.
The
That's
trans
why
allies.
that's why Joe Biden went so hard after Cardi B and gave her an interview, because that's the last demo that is completely still on board. And once they lose them, it's over. I mean, black men basically have fled the insanity a long time ago. So that's why they hate Kanye West so much. I still believe that even to this day, what they're doing to Kanye West still stems from him wearing a red hat. And last thing here, I know I've gotten a little bit off track, but it remains that in 2015, 2015 or whatever, Jay-Z and Beyonce can do a literal song and dance for Hillary Clinton and the Democratic Party, a literal song and dance on stage, basically tap dancing for Massa, and everybody claps like seals. Kanye West shows up at the White House to talk about prison reform or whatever, something that I'm not even really on board with. You did the crime, you should probably do the time, but that's a different story. He shows up at the White House in a red hat, and they say he needs to go to he's not right in the head. He needs to go see a psychologist. He's off his meds. So when Jay-Z and Beyonce literally sing and dance, it's okay. But when Kanye wants to talk a little bit of business about an issue that I don't even really like, they call him crazy. Even though that issue that he wanted to talk about, prison reform and stuff, is something that they have been championing for years, which is very similar to what we see with the Teslas. AOC is driving around in a Tesla, but now she hates Elon Musk. And so what are you going to do? You're going to buy an electric BMW? I mean, it's all insane. I'm sorry. This is crazy.
It's okay. Let's take a moment here to shout out everybody watching on Getter, on Twitter, on YouTube. Please share the podcast. That's how we grow. We're getting a lot of traction on Getter, which is nice. But please share the YouTube link. Please subscribe. Please follow us on Twitter and Instagram. Andrew Says TV, where you can find all my links. But the most important thing is sharing the podcast link. Just what's it called on Getter? I don't even remember. A giver, maybe giver on Getter is what you guys should be doing, and retweeting on Twitter. Please take a second to do that if you watch us and you love us. The next thing we've got to cover here is Jack Posobiec found out that Finland introduced the world's first transgender national figure skater. They fall down, blah, blah, blah. We'll watch in a second. But the thing to note here is it seems to be some sort of ceremony where they're parading all these countries around. It is. That flag you're looking at on the thumbnail there, I believe, is the Cyprus flag right here. I don't know if you guys can even see that. And then on the left, that looks like the Dutch flag. So those are the flags that they're showing, and you're going to see the transgender person. It looks, I don't know the story behind this. It could be way different than what Posobiec is presenting. You know, he worked for Post Millennial. They're pretty fast and loose, as they say, with the facts, in my opinion. Just read some of their stuff. But as it looks, there's a transgender person who's very bad at figure skating. It looks like maybe it's a special needs person. I don't know. But if it's as they're showing it, which is it's just a wonderful transgender person we've selected to be a figure skater, then God help us all.
Ajatuksen lähteä toteuttamaan lapsuuden haaveita ja alkaa luistella naismoodissa, vaikka syntyperäisin olenkin mies. Ja sieltä on niin kuin 9 vuotta aikaa, eli siihen 9 vuoteen sisältyy aika paljon. Eli kun lähdetään ihan nollasta, niin ihan jo sitä, että pysyy pystyssä 2 jalalla, pysyy pystyssä 1 jalalla ja sen jälkeen rupeaa niin kuin uskaltamaan tehdä jotakin siellä jäällä. Ja sitten alkaa pikkuhiljaa kisaamaan ja esiintymään näytöksissä ja niin edelleen. Että sanotaan, että aika kivaa uraa on ollut, mutta tietysti korona tuli vähän sitten väliin, että se sitten sotki kuviota. Mutta eteenpäin mennään ja homma jatkuu.
Mahtavaa. Näiden EM-kisojen slogan on tule sellaisena kuin olet.
Brave and beautiful.
That's that. I don't know what really was going on there. I'll look for an article about it. I think he posted one. But I don't know, Eric. Let's just assume for the moment that is what we were told it is. Some sort of, transgender person that they've decided should be a figure skater based on zero merit. And what do we say about that?
I mean, zero merit. Look, that person just strapped on those skates for the first time this morning. I mean,
I don't know.
We're talking about that looks like me if I were trying to, you know what I mean? It's like it takes you 10 or 15 minutes and then you kind of get your rhythm, right? Like I haven't been, ice skating, I guess, since I was a kid. I'm sure you guys do it every day, but I haven't been ice skating since like a birthday party in 6th grade or something like that. But it takes you what? It takes you 10 or 15 minutes, then you get the rhythm. That's what that looks like. And I get it. There's a bunch of people there, so maybe it's a little bit nerve-wracking, but that was by no stretch of the imagination anywhere near a professional grade figure skater, man, woman, or otherwise. Like, Who are they fooling now?
I found an article here that we can read to, and let's learn together, everybody, shall we? This is from Post Millennial. Figure and trans.
Is this his article? Is this
I would assume so.
Didn't look like it.
There?
Go down. I think it's under the image.
Libby Evans, who's their editor in chief. Further murmuring. Figure skater and trans-identified biological male Mina Maria Antikainen. That's how you got to say Finnish names.
Wait, hang on. I'm sorry. Just really quickly. Stop with the biological male, right? Like, there's only one type of male.
Writing.
I'm sorry.
I know, but I'm gonna throw them a bone here and say that you have to do that sometimes because the reader might not understand that the person that you're talking about thinks that they're a woman. So
because it makes no sense, and that's why. And this is how we got here: is that people who pretend to be, speaking up for the truth or whatever, like common sense, conservative, whatever you want to call it. You don't even realize that that's a step in the wrong direction, right? It's very easy to overlook that as being a step and playing ball with their shenanigans, right? Like, so I get it.
I think it's that you have to identify what the subject of the story is, and this is a guy who's pretending to be a girl.
So put it that way.
But you have to have some sort of level of professionalism in your writing, or else you're just writing a blog. Figure skater guy who thinks he's a girl, Mina Marie. Is that
lady man, lady boy?
Gave a debut performance at the European Figure Skating Championship in Espoo, Finland. I'm familiar with that due to hockey. Don't make a comment about being Canadian. The ceremony sees female figure skaters holding national flags while Antikainen, wobbling on white skates and with arms outstretched, skates a solo on the ice amid the girls who stand by and watch. Antikainen then stumbles and fails. So this is just a transcript of the video. I want to know more information about who this person is. Defines herself as a gender-neutral woman, adaptive skating performers, and a male synchronized skating team. So this is like a performance of all these different types of skaters, and I guess they're showcasing this transgender person with the diverse group of performers. We want to show that the ice has space for everyone. So this is literally, let's find somebody who identifies as transgender, or what is it? Gender neutral, which is literally impossible. You can't be gender neutral. You can't just say that you have no gender. That's literally impossible. Even if you cut off all your determining features, you can't be gender neutral. There's no such thing. You still have certain chromosomes. So unless you're going through some advanced radiology therapy that, I don't know, microwaves your hormones into being nothing definitive, there's no such thing. That's like saying your cat gave birth to a kitten, and what is it? It has no gender. That's literally impossible. You can say that they're agender, you can say they're intersex, all this stuff, and then the doctors makes a decision what it's closer to and what it would have an easier life as. But there's no thing where it's just like the person doesn't have, they're equally man, equally woman. And I mean, I could be just as wrong as I am about the air conditioning units there, but I don't think I'm making a stretch here. With the diverse group of performers, we want to show that the ice has space for everyone. Choreographer.
If they couldn't get a guy who at least knows how to skate, I mean, you could at least
get
somebody.
Lepalampi. No, because nobody in the figure skating world is going to do that. Because figure skating, which is kind of big here, Skates Canada, women are really good at it. They want to compete against other women. Men are really good. This isn't a sport that's taught in high school or done in high school. This isn't a sport that's done in college. You got to have advanced skating training. Either you left hockey because you were a really good skater and you thought you could do better at this, or you've been skating competitively since your very young age. There's no room for, like, when sports aren't through schooling systems and systems of leftist indoctrination control, there's very little transgenderism going on. That's why there's trans people in wrestling, because it's done in high school, and then there's none of them in MMA except for the one guy who got away with it for a little bit. You see what I'm saying?
How come we never see it in basketball? We never see it in basketball.
because the lesbians would beat the shit out of the guy. Is why Brittany Griner and crew are beating this guy up. If you come in and start dunking on them, you've seen the highlights, Eric. I know you've seen the highlights where they're just like, "Oh my god, this girl just dunked and she didn't even touch the rim and it rattles around 5 times and finally goes down." These girls are going to beat the guy's ass for coming in and stealing their shine. I just think that's what's going to happen. These aren't weak women. They may be not
We
very
don't see it in
entertaining.
football either. We don't. How come we never see any trans men? Right. That's
In
what
the
it is.
lingerie football league?
No.
Or women in that because they die. In head-to-head sports where physical contact, it's not going to happen. You know, the most famous.
But it's not going to happen in any
player,
sport. It's not going to happen in tennis. It's not going to happen in golf. There's no way.
I know. I meant the other way, but the male to female way. The most famous female hockey player historically in Canada, her name was Hayley Wickenheiser. Greatest female hockey player of all time. Frankly, the greatest female soccer players of all time are Canadian too, FYI. But this girl, the greatest female hockey player of all time, goes to play in. She played in a men's league. She didn't play in the North American League, NHL. She didn't play in the minor league for the NHL, the American Hockey League. She didn't play in the East Coast Hockey League, which is below that level. She didn't play for any other regional league in North America. She played in the third tier Finnish men's league. You can make an argument for the first tier men's league in Finland. Still not that great of a league. But the third tier men's league in Finland, which has no body checking, that's the height she was able to play at. And you've seen all these examples over the years where 13-year-old boys soccer team beats women's 19-year-old soccer team. The equivalent seems to be about 14-year-olds in sports like soccer and hockey that they're able to play against. Probably not even basketball because there's some giant kids out there. I watched those highlights too. I got tangent here. I got into watching high school basketball highlights through Mac McClung senior year. Shout out Mac McClung.
Well, he played for the Warriors or like the Warriors Summer League or something, I think. White dude,
He
right?
played was it the Warriors? I think it was the Bulls.
I think at one point in time he was, because that's how I heard about him, is because the Warriors
and
were my team.
then the Lakers.
Is he in the league? Do you know if he's in the league?
I think I don't know.
It was Summer League or G League.
He was crushing the
like
Summer League this
Okay.
summer. He was crushing the Summer League. I don't know where he is now, but he was from a place called Gate City, Virginia. He beat Allen Iverson's state point records. But I digress. This is a absolute shit show, and I think they have a video. The video posted 3 years ago indicates there's been little improvement in Antikainen's skill level. Let's throw back to that. Let's see if this Rumble video.
Oh, so this person didn't put on the skates just this morning, 30 minutes ago.
Can we hear this?
I can hear it. Yeah.
This is like ballet. We're gonna go ahead and skip ahead of this magical part. The Finnish language, though, I'm used to it from the. Oh my god! Let's just go ahead and pause that there. Eric, I don't know what to say.
Well, I'm surprised. The way that this young person was skating, I'm not joking. Like I thought they just put the skates on that morning, but and this is not skating though. This is some other ballet. So maybe they did just put the skates on that morning.
Well, it's all relative, Eric. Ballet, figure skating, it's all a dance. As you can see, there's a lot of complex movements going on here. A lot of attractive people in the room. And then he turns into Xena, the warrior princess on ice here, I guess.
Oh,
and I mean, he's probably better a figure skater, but the lights were on. You know, in the world of the UFC, some people are just great in the lower leagues, and they get to the UFC, the big lights are on them, or they get to title fight. Donald Cowboy Cerrone is a perfect example. And this is going to sound like an insult, but this is the Donald Cerrone of trans figure skating. Pretty good here in the empty arena, but when the lights go on, Antolainen, he just didn't have it, I guess.
I mean, I guess I can understand. It's like you can hit a bunch of 300-yard drives right down the center of the fairway on the range, but then you get on that first tee and you shank it into the woods. That's
right.
That's what it looks like is happening here. So, I mean, I could drain a bunch of
rough one.
I was gonna say 3-pointers, but I can't drain a bunch of 3-pointers. I can drain a handful of free throws, but if there's
You don't want to
15 people watching me, then it's gonna be a different story.
throw up that white supremacy sign. That's my favorite thing that still exists. That's one of those lovable lies that still exists. You know, Trump's saying there's good people on both sides. What else
Hands up,
is
don't
there?
shoot.
Hands up, don't shoot. They're not bringing their finest. And then you've got the white supremacist symbol that I believe Mike Cernovich and who's the girl that writes for Timcast now? She's their editor in chief. Cassandra Fairbanks. I believe it was them who popularized the OK symbol when it started to become a meme and they're at the White House. That was my favorite version of Mike Cernovich. I'm not going to lie. Mike Cernovich yelling at people in the White House press corps. Now he's sort of this guy who's just like, I told you so about everything, you guys. You got to be like me. I'm the greatest guy in the world. Shout out Mike Cernovich. I call him Cringevich at times.
Yeah,
I used to. Him.
I don't know. I used to follow his content, and then somewhere along the line, at least on Instagram, I don't even know. Did he get banned on Instagram? I don't know. He got super smug or super condescending, and I was like, all right, I'm done with this. Like, I just feel like at least okay, maybe this is the wrong way to go about it, and this is why I'm not hugely famous, but I'm not ever gonna pretend that I'm like breaking some news story for you. It's just like it's literally called report and opine. Like I'm gonna tell you what happened and then like rant about it. So you kind of have to keep up with the stories. And I think there's certain people, I won't name names, but they get so condescending about like their content and they kind of talk to their own followers like they're stupid. And I'm like, what? Why are you doing
true.
that?
And I think I know exactly who you're talking about.
Yeah, well,
but I think I know exactly who you're talking about.
Fair enough.
What's the story you sent me here? Male R word, and for audio listeners, it's not the tard word; it's the other one.
Bad stuff. Bad stuff.
Therapist, male therapist. Emphasis on the second part of the word. Transitions before trial. Sent to all female prisoners. Transgender woman. A transgender woman in the United Kingdom who loves appealing to this sector was convicted of sexually assaulting 2 women when she was a man. This is the problem with the New York Post too.
The New York Post
he
is
identified
all
as a man.
over the place, right? Like
they're America's Daily Mail.
Okay, all right, I'll wear that.
Is being sent to a female prison to await sentencing, prompting outcry from activists, politicians, and even United Nations officials, probably from non-Western countries, if I had to guess. Ela Bryson of Scotland was found guilty this week of committing the R's when she was previously named Adam Graham, a quote muscular end quote man with a shaved head and a face tattoo. Sounds like a white supremacist, according to the Daily Mail. There you go, the Daily Mail. Bryson, not Gray, denied the charges, telling the High Court of Glasgow that any sex was consensual and quote she would never hurt another human being. I mean, interesting, but I don't think that claiming your different gender by the time you go to jail strengthens your case. But maybe this person thought they were screwed and they felt they're innocent and they just wanted to game the system. But however, I don't know anything about this case, so don't tell me that I'm excusing any of their crimes. However, prosecutors successfully argued to jurors over a 6-day trial that Bryson, 31, attacked a victim in 2016 and another in 2019. Both crimes took place in jolly old Scotland. The defendant first appeared as Adam Graham in court, referred to as such a 2020 court indictment. It was later that year, according to British reports, that she decided to transition. Of course they did. If you're going to jail for a long time, you'd much rather be in a women's jail than a men's prison. Like, this is obvious, and I don't know why they didn't think that this was going to happen constantly. It's happening constantly in the U.S.
They knew, right? They knew everything.
Preach.
Well, I'm just saying, like, they knew. And this is, I think, where me and you differ, is because I think you're always giving these people like some sort of credit. I'm like, that ship sailed.
Who's
they? Know exactly what they're doing.
Who am I giving credit to?
The establishment blob of weirdo, power hungry.
I'm just trying to present both sides. I'm not saying I agree with it. If you want
well, I'm just so jaded that like obviously they knew what was going to happen, and it's just a power play, right? Remember a couple months ago, you could fact check me on this, but do you remember it was a couple months ago when there was a story about another assault, and then people on the left came out and said, like the when I say left, I mean the establishment shill bots, like the people who are have zero of their own agency. And they said, well, this person is only identifying as non-binary to get off easy, or like to get a lighter sentence. And then everybody,
Yep.
all the right wingers or whatever, the conspiracy, common sense type, the people who can kind of see through it, were like, you don't realize that you just said the quiet part out loud, and they don't even realize, because those people have been so manipulated by the power structure that they don't even realize when they're saying the wrong. It's a mess, bro. It's a mess. I'm sorry, but I'm just you and you're I mean you're yes, you're doing a better job, and like you can kind of look at both sides, and I'm just sitting here like, dude, this is there. It's so evil. It's so manipulative, and it just triggers me to no end. I'm gonna pop a blood vessel one day.
What I'm trying to do, Eric, is I'm trying to get out ahead of the people who say, "Oh, you're a bigot," basically. Because when you present the other side, and I want to present the other side and say this is why I disagree with it, but the slim possibility still exists, because what people who tend to be leftists do is they don't think past level one. They say, this person says this, level one, bigot, wash my hands of the situation. But when you take away the first level, they don't have a level 2 or 3. They don't have, hey, well, maybe Mayor de Blasio, he's a great left-wing guy and you're a bigot because you don't believe in gun safety and transgender rights. They don't have the second level of, he's doing Q-tip comedy and he's got nipple rings and telling you to I'm conflating the Cuomos and de Blasio clearly here. But you know what I'm saying is they only have the surface level argument. And what I try to do by presenting the other side is say that, hey, I know your surface level argument is here, so I'm taking that response away from them, which is what you have to do with some people to force them to think, unfortunately. And also, there's the whole good cop, bad cop thing. And you're a racist white man, and I'm not, so I can't be looped in with you.
All right, fair enough. I was just like, this is just getting ridiculous. Like, of course they knew it was what nobody who made it that far through life to where they can be making policy like that couldn't see it coming, right? Like anybody in San Francisco, like now, even that rule in San Francisco with the reparations, if I'm not mistaken, again, go ahead and fact check me on this, but I'm pretty sure I read somewhere that you can basically identify as black. And like there's what in Palm Springs or some other California town where they were giving out money to transgenders. Did you not think that was gonna, maybe they were gonna flock to your city? Like the same thing with the drug stuff, the free paraphernalia. Oh, get a clean needle and get a new tie off string or whatever. Like people are gonna flock to you. Like, and that's what it's going to be like, right? So if you go through San Francisco's Tenderloin district and you walk through all these weird zombies who are doing their heroin nod and they can't stand up
The
straight.
Tenderloin district.
Oh, you never heard of the loin? The TL, as some might
Is
call
there
it.
a T-bone district as well, or a
There's
New York
no
strip district?
no, but you could tell that they flock to that area because they know that's where they're going to get the most handouts, and that's exactly what's going to happen with this. Like, oh yeah, if you identify as a woman, we'll put. Are you kidding me? Like, who wouldn't want to go have a nice Orange is the New Black pillow fight versus being in the joint with Lumpy or whatever? And I'm thinking like Italian mobsters because I'm watching Sopranos, but you don't want to be in the joint with a whole bunch of big hairy dudes. You want to go with where there might be. I mean, there might be a pretty girl in women's prison. I don't know.
A lot of tattoos. Who stabbed a couple people. Did you watch the Danny Mullen video today?
I did not know. I've been in the Sopranos K-hole, or I shouldn't say it, but I've been in the Sopranos. So I haven't seen Danny in like 3 weeks, I think. 2 or 3
you got
weeks.
catching up to you. But the reason I bring it up is because this is in Northern California, and these people live under a bridge. All the floods put the homeless encampments underwater and everything. And what I'm like, these people seem like they're capable people. They're talking about how many tents and stuff they own. But what I don't understand is how is this, how are you this homeless? If they say that they're bragging about all the stuff that they have, and they survive when a flood hits, and they've been homeless for 4 years. And this guy even says, "I'm homeless, but I got bills to pay." How is it that you're homeless? And you're talking about, of course, all the homeless people going everywhere. But are you so priced out of the market that being homeless is more sustainable than being able to save up money, or is this just another excuse? Is what I want to know. Like in California.
Well, I mean, I didn't see the episode, but or the video, but it is. I mean, I will admit it is possible to have been priced out of the housing market in Northern California. That's not out of the realm of possibility. But it's honestly, this is probably going to sound like a cop out, but it probably is a little bit of both, right? Like it probably is a little bit of an excuse. I mean, cigarettes I think are going to cost you at least $15.
Danny gave them those though.
Oh, okay, all right. I didn't realize that. Do you happen to know what city this is? It looks like it could possibly be Oakland. I don't know.
No, he says it's Northern California where there's big flooding happening. I guess it doesn't have a description there.
Well, there was a bunch of like even when I was at home for Christmas, there was a bunch of. I mean, there was entire freeways that were closed. So it. Oh, does that say?
Northern California, where the flooding has been. It'll take a second to load. I'll bring it back up, but it just seems to me that at some point, people are taking this opportunity to, not. They've got to take this opportunity to not live on the streets, and I don't know if it's to this point where, you can't even save up money to rent an apartment in a place like California because things have been so exploded because of the liberal policies. Sacramento River, so I think it's outside of Sacramento.
Okay.
There's just some like place where people have developed some sort of massive homeless encampments, I guess.
So Sacramento is cheaper than the Bay Area, right? Like Sacramento's what?
Okay.
It's I think 2-ish hours northeast of say San Francisco. So it's a little bit cheaper. That's where the governor's mansion or whatever is. It's the capital, but it is cheaper. So I mean, it really could go either way. Now, just by looking at those people, if I'm going to make a snap judgment, they brought it like you know what I mean. They didn't just get. And that's another thing. If you want to talk about liberal policies, like they make it almost impossible to get rid of somebody. So the sheriff is not just going to come in if you miss one month of rent. The sheriff is not going to come and kick you out of the house. It's going to take 12 months for that landlord to get rid of you. So you know what I mean? It wasn't like, oh, I just missed 1 or 2 months and now I'm out on the street. Not possible, bro. They make, and that's why it costs so much to get in. The same thing in New York, right? You got to pay first month, last month, sometimes a security deposit on top of that. So that's looking at 3 months of rent. If you're
normal here. Well, yeah, it sucks, but
on top of that, you have to show, like here in Arizona, I think you only have to make either twice or 3 times the amount of the rent. In New York, they want you to make 40 times.
Oh my god!
So if you can make $120,000 in New York and you'll qualify for an apartment that costs you $1,700. You know what I mean? Like, so they make it so hard for you to get in because once you're in, you basically have carte blanche. You can do whatever you want. So I'm not going to say I don't know in California if it's 40 times because and full disclosure, I wasn't working in real estate in California. I didn't do that until I got to New York. But I assume it's going to be at least 5 or 10. So in Arizona, it's only 2 or 3. In South Dakota, it's 2. So if your rent is $600, you only have to bring in $1,200 a month, and they'll be like, all right, like no felonies, you're good to go. And on top of that, another liberal policy that they're pushing through is that they want to end background checks. So you have to show that you make all this money, you have to pay for it, and then if you don't pay for it, it's going to be impossible. And I know I'm getting off on a tangent here, but I had a roommate situation when I lived in California, and he had one piece of mail there, couldn't get rid of him. I mean, if you spend like 2 nights at a place, you're basically considered a tenant, and they're going to make it very difficult for you to get rid of him. Now, me being the street savvy guy that I am, I was able to get rid of him, but we'll put that behind the paywall. That story.
Well, here it was always normal to have first and last and a credit check. And then it started to become first and last and a credit check. And if we don't believe you, a bank statement, show us how much money you have. And you could still resist that easily and find a place. But the craziest thing, the last time I went
But
out
did you have
looking
to
for
show
places,
all the how
how
much
much money
more?
you have in your bank account.
But did you have to show that you made X amount over the rent,
No, it was usually a job letter that shows your wage, your hourly wage.
But it wasn't like a
And
set
then
minimum, like you have to make 3 times the monthly rent.
no, I've never
Okay.
heard of something like that. The most egregious that I've seen personally was they wanted first, last, second, last, so 3 months, and then they wanted a credit check, and they wanted bank statements, and they also wanted you to put a deposit in order for us to look at your application, which you might not get back. So if you had to pay like $300 for their time, basically, if you wanted to be considered. And if you didn't withdraw your application with a long enough time, they're going to keep that deposit, which is insane and illegal. And it's Chinese landlords trying to, have to do less work and get people that they know know that can really pay for it. And then something they did around here, we attempted to move, my roommates and I, we attempted to move down the street. We couldn't find a place. We were willing to pay. Um, the regular rent is already up like $1,000. We were gonna end up paying like $1,500 more than what we previously paid. But this house was gigantic, and we were willing to shell out the money and like basically be rent poor, whatever you call it, but to have this massive, massive home, like 3 times the size of what we're living in now. And the landlord, would put in these things the rental agreement, like he gets to share the basement. So you're paying this massive amount of money, but he gets half the basement, which means he can come in anytime he wants. And then he would put in another thing. And eventually we were just like, no, like, look how much money we're putting down here. And then he goes, I was never going to rent you anyways if you didn't agree to this stuff. So it was basically just a test. And this guy this Chinese guy who's sitting on this property that he wants to charge, I'm guessing American is $3,000 a month for this house. He has no problem paying the monthly mortgage on that with nobody living in it, but he's only going to rent that out to somebody who basically is willing to get screwed over by saying he can come in at any point that he wants. He can store stuff there, and you have to pay like extra insurance for the property and all this crap. And these are the people that are renting things out. This is the problem in Canada, is that you have, sorry to say it, but you have mostly Chinese landlords that are buying houses and renting them to people at extreme cost. And then on top of that, you have 500,000 immigrants a year coming in. They can't build houses fast enough. They probably don't want to build houses fast enough. And then it ends up trickling down to all this weird, terrible stuff. So you have like people 3 generations Indian or Chinese living in a house. What that's messing up is property tax. Because let's say you have 3 generations living in a house, you're usually getting 3 families worth of property taxes to pay for schools. Now you don't have enough money to pay to upkeep, parks and recreation and build enough schools. So you have all these people crammed in a little bit of area. You don't have as much as I hate the government doesn't have the money to pay for schools because of all the people that are there, because you can't account for all the people that are there because they're all living under one roof. Like three times as many people are living in 33% of the housing. So one thing that they won't do in Canada is they won't lessen the immigration numbers because they want the tax revenue from these people that are coming over legally, but they won't build the houses for it. And then what ends up happening is they counter everything but that. The conservatives don't want to cut immigration either. So you have to run into these property tax problems. You have to do these real estate workarounds where it's like you have to pay a tax if your house is vacant. Like you own a property, you want to rent it. Every month that house is vacant, you have to pay a tax on that. And they don't care. They're going to do it anyways. Why? Because if you think about how many, let's say, millionaires there are in Canada or the United States, Canada specifically, think of how many millionaires there are out of 37 million people. Think of how many millionaires there are in China out of 1 point whatever billion people. It's going to be that many times more if we're just being generous on a statistical probability, there's at least 100 times more millionaires there are, and that's how rich you have to be to own a house here at this point. The house I'm living in is probably worth 300,000 American. Right now, it costs like $1 million American. That's how much it's worth on the market. So you have to be some sort of millionaire to be able to own these places, and China's got a lot of them. And Canada is still better than China, as close as it's getting to it. It's more free than China is. So these
For
people have
now.
no problem buying these places, letting their relatives live in it, letting their students and their family, or renting it out, paying these taxes. But nobody wants to correct the problem at the source, which is letting too many. I don't care where they're coming from. You're letting too many people in. How is a society supposed to sustain itself? It's a tongue
Again,
twister.
they want it. They want the collapse.
They don't care. They want the collapse.
It's a-
Kanye
it's a-
West is a neo-Nazi. They're all doing it.
It's
How
a
about that
managed
satanic statue?
of RBG.
Yeah. It's just
Yeah.
a blatant, like, we're turning it into Satanism.
Yeah, I
Horns.
mean, they. Well, I mean, that's what a look. We don't have to get into the abortion argument, but there's sacrifice. If you can't, and this is my tinfoil hat theory. If you can't sacrifice the little guy before he's born, then you can cut his junk off and turn him into a girl, and make him a sterile little weirdo.
There's insurance policies. Let's close on this, Eric.
Well,
okay?
hold on, just really quick. Yes, just really quick. I just wanted to say that the real estate market in New York, I don't know much about what's happening here in Arizona, but there's some similar problems. Maybe we'll get into it on another episode, but there is the Chinese landlords that are difficult. And there's another group of people who happen to be landlords who are also
Are they Indian?
difficult. No, I'll let you use your
Indian
imagination.
landlords. There's give and take with both. And
Who owns most of Brooklyn? All right.
De Blasio in Gotham City, right? Dog whistles. Eric Butler dog whistles to white supremacists live on a podcast.
Let's do the last story. Moving
San
on.
Ramon Valley. Where is that?
Northern California. Again.
High school issues apologies for racist remark made by student during basketball game. So we don't know what he said, I don't think. Racist remark made by students during a basketball game on Wednesday night. So what I want to know is what the word was, what was the race of the students, because if it's two white kids calling each other honkies, that's technically a racist language, as they say. But whatever. I want to be clear that in no uncertain terms, racist language or racial slurs will not be tolerated, says a letter sent out to parents by the principal of the school.
In school or elsewhere, which I think, Matt, in school or elsewhere. So if we catch you
online. Here's what my stance is, Eric. You can say anything to people in sports. I don't care if you want to make fun of my ethnicity, my gender, my sexuality in a sport. It's about the mental game. It's about getting in a person's head. If you get hurt by words in a sport, that's your own problem. I don't think there should be any limitations on what somebody can say to you in this competitive environment. They can be mean. They can be hateful. They can talk about your mother, your father. Zinedine Zidane might, if you remember that name, might respond by headbutting you in the chest if you call him a terrorist, or something was said about his sister wasn't exactly clear. But this is the repercussions. You might have to fight the person. But I think if it's grown men in a situation where they've agreed to physically hurt each other, and
these aren't grown men.
Cases,
these are high schoolers. Just, these are high school kids.
That's true, but I still think it should go. I still think it should be allowed. I think if you can't take being called a name, then you're never going to be good at this sport.
Absolutely. And I think here's my point about this is this, I believe, is in the same town or very close to a story we talked about a few weeks ago. Did we talk about the In-N-Out, the racist guy at In-N-Out who was heckling the Asian TikTokers? Do you remember that?
No.
There was a guy at a San Ramon Valley In-N-Out burger who was heckling. Look, I'm pretty sure if you read the story, they're not going to mention it. But if you read the story, what it sounds like to me is this: it's Christmas time. It's like it's either the 23rd or Christmas Eve, the 24th. So it's right around Christmas time. There's a drunk guy who's eating In-N-Out burger. He's clearly intoxicated. He's going to get a burger, and he sees these two Asian kids doing TikTok about the In-N-Out secret menu, and he starts heckling them and making jokes about Asians or whatever. Same city. So my point is, why do these quote unquote racist things always happen in the most liberal, hive mind areas? And on top of that, I think back to when I was in high school. I played basketball for a short period of time, but it wasn't much better on the golf course. I mean, we had all types of like, oh, does your husband play too? Type of things, which I think probably wouldn't even fly today. I understand that that's not as insulting as maybe dropping an N-bomb. But you think about these kids, 14, 15, 16 years old or whatever, like do you think they don't get off the basketball court and start going to listen to Young Thug, who's up on murder charges right now, dropping N-bombs left and right? It doesn't matter. And to your point, yes, can you imagine playing basketball against a guy like Kevin Garnett? Kevin Garnett has made, 30-year-old men cry. So you're not going to get anywhere. And it's just, they're just baiting people. Like this happened. It's a little bit older story, but it happened before this whole thing in Memphis. And they just, every single time, they just want to make you angry. Like, did you see what happened in San Ramon Valley? There's racists out there. It's just like, it's absolute insanity. And then they allude to the fact that it's an N-bomb, but we don't know. They never tell you explicitly.
Mhm.
And I would be willing to bet that it's just, I mean, like you said, it's just kids being kids, bro. They're talking trash on a basketball court. Like, why is that news? But here we are, because they're meant to, they want to make people angry. And again, you don't see this. If I spent 1 year in South Dakota, I never saw one story about a racist high schooler in the middle of the country where there's not as quite a high black population, I suppose, as there is in the melting cultural pot of the Bay Area. And it only happens there. Why is that? Why is it happening in New York? Why is it happening in Memphis, which I believe, if I understand correctly, is like 60% black, Memphis, Tennessee?
I played high school basketball, Eric, and a bit in college. And if I ran to the referee or to an authority figure every time somebody said something about me being white, I don't know, I'd probably be beaten up for it. But I distinctly remember in college playing pickup. And listen to me, I didn't suck. And this is Canada, where people aren't as tall. Of course, you have some outliers, but I didn't suck. And these two guys are picking teams, and then somebody picks me, and then one guy goes to the other one. He's like, "Dude, do you want to lose?" is what he said to him. And what was I supposed to do? Should I have gone to a college athletics administrator and told him that he made a comment about me? That one wasn't about race, but like I've been called, "Hey, white boy, do you know how to play?" Like stuff like that. That stuff all the time. And then you could do that in any sport where there was a baseball player with the Toronto Blue Jays. I forget his name at the moment, but he said the F-bomb, the rag word. He had it written on his eye black in Spanish. That's how homophobic they are. Because his teammates, who are also Spanish speaking, wrote it on his eye black because it's like adhesive. You don't have to just put the marker on. There's sticker ones, and they wrote it on his without him knowing it. And then he was wearing it, and then he got fined, and then the guys who did it got fined.
That's actually.
Could you imagine? Yeah, could you imagine them actually crying about that and being like, "Oh, he called me gay. Oh my god!" Or me crying with this teacher or referee or coach. They said that I was a white person, and thus I was not as good at basketball as the black guys were. Like that's the reality of the statement.
Could also be considered racist in a different way. But I do think if you read the story, and
structural racism.
It's a little bit older story, so I don't remember. But I'm pretty sure that it was just the administration. Like they took it upon themselves. Like they don't say like, oh, so and so cried to the principal and wanted an apology. They just hurt. They were like they just snapped into
An alarm went off.
Yeah, like woke teacher, like indoctrination. Yeah, like it's like these kids again. I not to like sound like a broken record, but do we really think that these kids? I don't even know what they're listening to these days. I use Young Thug because like he's in the news, whatever he's doing. It's like they listen to these rappers, and I like rap. Don't get me wrong, but it's like you're listening to this content all day. Nobody cares if you're singing along with a song. Nobody cares unless, of course, you're white. But these kids, I would venture to say, probably didn't even really care. Did you think there was a black kid at the free throw line crying? No, it was the teachers, the overbearing teachers who are trying to turn you into a soft weirdo tranny, and they're the ones complaining about it. It's not even the kids, but that's what I think. This is a classic independent thought alarm Simpsons clip. But yeah, My point is, why is it happening in the place where it should never be happening? Where everybody's so tolerant, unless you wear a red hat, it shouldn't be happening.
True.
But because they manufacture it, because they want it, they want you to remain angry is the point, I guess.
Thanks everybody for watching upod.com. Subscribe on YouTube, retweet us, share the podcast on Getter, follow us on Instagram and Twitter. Instagram at Andrew Does, DOES, and at Report and Opine. That's Eric. And if you're listening to audio, please give us a review on Spotify and Apple. We're charting in Europe on Apple for whatever reasons. This is the next thing that came on. We will leave you guys with this.
One. Nothing. No bids for item 751.
A buck.
I have a buck. I have $1 there. $1, $1, $1, do I have two? $2, sold for a buck.
Cool.
Turn it up, Jordan.